Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we've got a little update on the E1 FPV system. From the outside it all looks pretty much the same as last week, except we now have some yellow caps on the antennas, and more importantly we have a camera. I wanted something fairly cheap, but with specs that suggest a good performance, especially in low light. Keeping it small was also a factor, so we're not adding too much weight to the gimbal. I ended up with a Caddx Ant Nano. It's 14mm across, costs about 15 quid, and from what I can tell has fair low light performance for indoor use. It seemed like a good deal. The only issue I could find was due to the built-in noise reduction, but there are settings for it, so I'm hoping with some tinkering it'll work nicely. If we lift the roof off, we can see there's a fair amount going on under there. There's the Radio Master receiver that's currently just doing the gimbal, but it will end up controlling the tracks too. A 5.8 gig transmitter for the FPV, which connects directly to a 2S LiPo that runs everything you can see, and it generates 5 volts to run the camera. Also connected directly to the battery is a 5 volt UBEC in the red heat shrink that runs the receiver and the servos. For now I'm just using a little 850 mAh 2S pack, but when we have it running the tracks we'll look for something around 2000 mAh. Even with the FPV gear it should run the E1 for well over an hour. To test the setup we're going to need the Edge TX radio, the headset with the head tracker, which I've moved. It was on the side, but I had a fairly constant pan drift that wouldn't calibrate out, so I'm trying it on the front. It seems to work well, but it is in the way of the headset's antenna for the video, which isn't so good. I'll probably try it on the top next, with a proper 3D printed case rather than all the tape. The trainer lead from the head tracker plugs into the transmitter, and its USB connection goes into the power bank. Now we can plug in the battery, and that means we can also see the mountings for the roof. There's 2 frames in the load area that have M4 cap head screws in the tops, which line up with magnets in the roof. Not super strong, but plenty good enough for how we're using the E1. There's no power switch just yet, so as soon as we connect the battery everything starts up. We can sit the battery in the bottom, which leaves plenty of space for all the bits and bobs above. Next we power up the headset and do a scan. And assuming the E1's transmitting, it'll find it and we should see what the camera can see, which at the moment is the inside of the white box and the roof of the cab. As a quick test, we can zero the head tracker and set the gimbal mode on the transmitter to head tracker. When we move the headset, the gimbal matches. But of course, the real fun starts when we put the headset on. There's not too much to see in here, but we can see the camera settings do need some fiddling. It seems to be having difficulty around high contrast. The cables to the headset have a strange glow around them. It looks a bit like it's over sharpening the image. A bit strange, but other than that the picture quality is quite good. To get a better feel for it though, we do need to head outside. Now I'm sticking to hard ground as the E1's mainly going to be used indoors and I really don't want to have to clean the tracks. It's running rather nicely, but I did find the WPL radio goes out of range quite quickly. Plenty good enough if you're following it around, but for FPV it is a bit short. I had to hold the transmitter above my head a few times to keep control. We really do need to get all the controls onto that proper radio. As for the camera, you can see it's still having trouble with the high contrast around the trees, and even with the texture of the ground. I reckon it's the sharpness setting that's going to be causing it, but I forgot to take the little board with me that you need to change the settings on the camera. Hopefully next time out I'll remember it and the fiddling can begin. Other than the odd glow, I'm quite happy with the setup. The head tracker's working well, the gimbal is fairly smooth given the cheap servos, the range of motion is good enough, a bit more pan would be nice though, but most of the time it works as is. Having the rotate on the camera as well as the pan and tilt seems to make it feel a whole lot more natural than a 2-axis gimbal. It's not moving a lot most of the time, but it matches your head movement just that bit better. I think it's well worth the extra effort. So that's it for this week. A super short video I'm afraid. I should be out playing with the indoor trucks as this video goes live, so if I can work out the camera issue, I'll get some onboard footage and upload it Sunday evening, and I'll put a link to it in the description. It's only going to be a quick video, but we'll test the setup in its intended habitat. Right, so until next week, thanks for watching. Like if you like, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment if there's something on your mind. Bye guys.